Welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. If you are new here, I'm thrilled that you found us. I'm your host, Shannon Crow. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm also a yoga teacher, mom of 3, entrepreneur, and forever curious student with a lot of questions, especially about yoga. This podcast is recorded on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe, Odawa, and Mississauga people. If you are looking on a colonized map, look for the Bruce Peninsula in Ontario, Canada. Here on the podcast, the goal is to connect yoga teachers to ideas, resources, and each other. Whether you're just starting out or you're well into your journey, this space is for you so that you feel supported and inspired as you're going through yoga teacher training, as you're driving to your classes, as you're figuring out how to run a business, whether that's online or in person. We get it. We have, years now, 8 years of episodes for you. All here. You can go to our website and search for any topic that you have questions about. If you're a returning listener, thank you so much for coming back. Also, for those of you who know me, I'm going to share a little personal update near the end of today's episode where I sort of feel like today's episode getting to your ears feels like a slight miracle. I'll tell you why that is near the end of today's episode and kind of give you a personal update. But we'll get right into things if you're like, I'm here for the guest, the topic, and learning. So today we have the pleasure of speaking with Rodrigo Souza, who will be talking about what we as yoga teachers really need to know when we're teaching yoga to wheelchair users. In this episode, we talk about language, how our inner biases show up, and we get into some really great cues and pose ideas that you might use in your next class. I want to give a special thank you to our sponsor for today's episode, OfferingTree. Many of you know that I use and love this software in my own business because it automates so much, from bookings, payments, Zoom links, reminders, and so much more. We use this software to book our podcast calls, and then everything is automatic when we do that. And if you're thinking, okay, I want to do that to start a yoga website or, host my yoga videos or book people in and have them sign their waiver and pay online, use our discount code because it'll save you a bit of money. That's over at OfferingTree.com/Shannon. Okay, let's get into today's episode. So as I said, today we have an incredible guest, Rodrigo Souza, the founder of Allihopa Yoga. After experiencing a life-changing spinal cord injury, Rodrigo turned his journey of recovery into a mission to make yoga accessible for all bodies. He shares adaptive yoga while helping others find comfort, joy, mindfulness, and acceptance in their unique experiences. In today's episode, we dive into a really important and often overlooked conversation about disability, ableism, and what actually is inclusive teaching. We explore how small shifts in language, like saying non-disabled instead of able-bodied and wheelchair user instead of wheelchair-bound, can make a big impact. Rodrigo joins us to share his personal experiences and insights, reminding us that we're all in this quote-unquote mistake factory of learning to be more inclusive. Oh my gosh, I appreciated this part of the interview so much, as you'll hear me make a mistake with my language right off the top. And I just love how Rodrigo, embraces his own mistakes and, teaches and just talks about let's learn quickly. We also discuss practical ways to create welcoming spaces, from sitting at eye level with someone who's in a wheelchair to using consistent cues for all students, regardless of their ability. Rodrigo also offers guidance on teaching yoga when we can't demo poses and explains the importance of spinal movements for wheelchair users. Plus, he gives us a sneak peek into his upcoming book that he's working on, and he candidly addresses topics that are often left out of the conversation, like sexual pleasure and pain management for wheelchair users. Whether you're a yoga teacher looking to adapt your class plans or simply wanting to challenge your own assumptions, this episode is packed with valuable takeaways. So let's dive in and meet Rodrigo. Welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast, Rodrigo. It's so great to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to chat with you.
Me too. I'm excited that we get to talk about what do we do when there's a wheelchair user that comes into our yoga class. But before we dive into this, tell our listeners what's the work that you do and who do you do it for?
Beautiful. My name is Rodrigo Souza. I go with the pronouns he and him, and I am an accessible/adaptive yoga teacher. I teach yoga to folks who has experienced trauma and disabilities. I have a disability myself. Nearly a decade ago, it's going to be 10 years and 3 weeks. I fell from a cliff from an embankment and I broke my back. I sustained a complete spinal cord injury, which made me paralyzed from the chest down and a full-time wheelchair user. And I was practicing yoga before. I used to do Bikram yoga like a few years before my accident. And after breaking my back at the age of 33, I had the grace and the privilege to incorporate adaptive yoga into my rehabilitation process. I started studying with Martha Stanford. And I loved it so much that I got this sense of responsibility because disabled folks don't know that yoga is for them. So I decided to become a yoga teacher and teach from my own experience and make sure that I make this practice available to them because the medical model is treating us like a mechanic treats a car, and there is no access to wellness holistic practice anywhere. So from one side of my work, I make sure I tell disabled folks through representation and through my teaching that yoga is for them. I teach like folks with disabilities from different parts of the world. Folks with multiple sclerosis, spinal cord injury, stroke, cerebral palsy, and so on. Amputees. I teach for several nonprofits as well, included like Christopher Reeve Foundation, Mind Body Solutions, Gathering Strength, Art Active Rehabilitating. I also teach in a rehabilitation center, in a community center, and I also have like my other front of work is to make sure I educate yoga teachers so they can make the offerings accessible to this population as well. So I run trainings with like Accessible Yoga Association, and I also run like a mentorship program where I guide accessible yoga teachers through the process to get out there and do the work. I do a lot of things.
You do. That's a lot of things. I'm super excited that you're here with us, taking some time to like educate us more about how we can make our yoga classes accessible. You and I connected through Jivana Heyman of the Accessible Yoga School, and I'm so grateful for that connection and the work that Jivana does. And I love that you two are working together. So
Yeah.
so first of all, let's just imagine that we're teaching a yoga class. Me as an able-bodied person.
First of all, Shannon, I would love to invite you to, instead of saying able-bodied person, say non-disabled person.
That is so good. I'm so glad that you said that.
Because like able-bodied is like, I think everyone has an ability, everyone is able. So it's like, and it sound more friendly, non-disabled and disabled, non-disabled and disabled.
What if I also said someone without visible disabilities?
Yeah, it can be.
I love that you're pointing this language out because I think this is what my anxiety like sort of goes up the moment I see someone come into my class, and this has happened to me over the years, where I think, "Oh my gosh, I hope I don't say the wrong thing right now because this person has different abilities."
Yeah, and also like through a research that I conduct, this is what makes yoga teachers hesitate and serving this population because they're afraid of making mistakes. They're afraid of saying the wrong thing or hurting them some way. And I love mistakes, Shannon. Like mistakes is a step for us to learn.
Yeah.
We need to get out of that perfectionist, westernized yoga model and it's like, put the, good enough and perfect boots on. And it's like, yeah, let's make mistakes. Because now we know, right? I made a lot of mistakes. I still making them. I love them.
I love this. And also, how great would it be at the beginning of class, of any class, if we're like, if I say something while I'm teaching and it just rubs you the wrong way or it's offensive in some way, please come up and tell me. Like you can shout it out in the class or you could tell me afterward. I want
Yeah,
I want my language to be more inclusive.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So what are some of the key things that you think yoga teachers could change with their language other than saying like able-bodied person? Now we can change it
Oh,
to non-disabled person.
not disabled person. That is friendly. Another friendly things that I would say is like using terms like wheelchair bound. You know, instead of try to use like wheelchair user. I am a wheelchair user. I facilitate yoga for wheelchair users. That's like so like it sounds better. You know,
Yeah.
in England they use a lot of the word handicap. You know, but like I would also say like wheelchair user. Disabled is not a bad word. You can say disabled folks as well, disabled people. you know if you're like holding a conversation with a wheelchair user for more than 3 minutes, if you see that you're going to have a longer conversation, try to find a place to sit, to have an eye level conversation. Every time someone does that to me, I found it so polite, you know and if you are going to facilitate yoga for wheelchair users, for example, make sure like you have a conversation with them at eye level. You acknowledge the person, like you acknowledge that you've seen them, that they're there. I think it is a way to make them like comfortable, welcoming, like in your yoga class. Like a few things that you can do. You can turn the practice more like humanized, let's say. I don't know if this words is exist, but it's like humane, maybe. And also like checking up with your assumptions. A lot of people, they feel pity for us because we're in wheelchairs. Society has conditioned us to think that wheelchair is something very tragic, and Hollywood doesn't help us neither. Every film that you see, we need to overcome this horrible disability. Oh, my life is very limited and I have a horrible life. That is bullshit. Like disabled folks have like very fulfilling lives, and a wheelchair is not like a symbol of tragedy. It's a symbol of freedom. you know if it wasn't my wheelchair, I would be in bed right now. I wouldn't be able even to be here in my lounge to talk to you, right? So we tend to feel sorry for folks. We go out and we see a wheelchair user. We start thinking that something might have happened to that person. Might be an accident or a chronic illness, something like not positive, let's say. So we start automatically feeling sorry for that person. And that is not a nice feeling, especially if you're going to hang out with them and teach them. A teacher should never feel sorry for the student. That is the wrong power dynamic you have in the room if you go that way. But as we live in the ableism society, that is how we're conditioned to live. So it's like you need to break down these assumptions before you can like welcome someone with a disability in your class.
Oh my gosh. This is so much. This is great information right off the top. I also remember a mistake that I made, and thank you for saying, like, let's embrace our mistakes and talk about them because we can all learn from it. When I was talking about a wheelchair user and I was saying, like, wow, it was so inspiring to go to his class. Uh,
Mm.
there was also very quickly, some people that worked in the accessible yoga world at the time were like, it's not, it can't just be inspiring just because someone's in a wheelchair. Like, sorry, we're going to call you on this. Yes, it was like a really great class, and I could be inspired by that person's yoga class, but I saw the subtle
Yeah,
nuance that they
yeah,
were talking about.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I love the accessible yoga world. They teach me things all the time. You mentioned Jivana, and Jivana is a person that he always like, when I talk to him or when I write to him, he always point out like, oh, maybe this sounds patronized, maybe this sounds this way, or maybe this is too old-fashioned word to use. It's like so mistakes are always welcome. When it comes to being inspired, the problem is, Shannon, people get inspired by us just to get out in the morning and brush our teeth. You know, if it's something that you really mean, because the class was like, that you felt good after class, the class was good, he conducted the class well, or she or them. It's like, if it's a genuine thing to say, yes, there is no problem with that, you know. But like most of the time, they have that patronizing, like, tap in the shoulder, or you're doing so well, that it is not welcoming. It's like, and I get those all the time. I tell you, it's like, especially from all the yoga teachers, like, oh, you're yoga teachers. How nice. How cool. Good for you. It's just like,
You're making me laugh because I'm imagining if like someone said that to
yeah.
them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's,
And I did it. I'm not laughing like I'm laughing like sort of uncomfortably because I'm the one that said it. I made the mistake and now I realize how it would feel. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Anything else? Anything else that you feel like yoga teachers or yoga practitioners
Oh,
might be missing?
like, let's go back to the basics. You know, that is not, it's like, this is not quantum mechanics here. Is like, let's go back to the basics, the golden rule. You know, if someone is listening to us right now, just, if you don't know what golden rule is, just type on Google and read it. Golden rule is simply teaching the person in front of you as you'd like to be treated. That as basic as it gets. Because, like, the point is, Shannon, if you don't know anyone with disability, if there is no one in your family member with disability, if you don't have a friend with disability, you know shit about disability. You don't know anything because society doesn't teach us this kind of things. I don't know why this beautiful capitalist world we live in, they teach us how to make money, but they don't teach us how to have human relations, right? So let's go back to the basics a little bit. If someone with a disability makes you feel uncomfortable, of course we do, because we're different, right? So, like, it's like, instead of like having this patronizing or this like a charitable way of trying to help out, or like having assumptions about how the people live, how they get on about their day. It's like, just ask yourself, if I was that person, what if I was that person? How I would like to be approached, how I would like to be talked to, how I would like to be treated. Let's swap the sides here. If I was the student in a wheelchair, how I would like to be guided, you know.
Mhm. Oh my gosh, you're bringing it back to like my friend Christine is a wheelchair user. And I remember I was like, well, I was old enough to drive.
Mm,
And her parents had asked me if I come and stay with her for, I don't know, it was like 10 days or something, a week. I don't know. I learned so much in that week from her.
mm.
Mostly like how she
Yeah.
very much had a life just like anybody else, you know?
Yeah, and sorry to cut you,
No.
and that is something that we're not very good at. Like, you know, we need to diversify our friendships, our circle of friends, or at least our Instagram feeds,
Mm-hmm.
check it out. Do you follow like cisgender white middle class folks only? There is something wrong with you. It's like, put some black folk there, put some queer folks over there, some disabled folks. There are a lot of like, people educating us out there, and it's like this is the only way that you're going to free yourself from bias, from this condition that has been, imposed us by society since the day we're born, you know.
Yeah.
Because
Here's a
like
Sorry,
because
go ahead.
because like as I acquired that ability, I was a non-disabled person until I was 33, right? I am like, I've got so much bias on me, Shannon, so much ableism. Like, it's like, I work at the local theater with like inclusive dance as well. The other day I was with like a friend of mine that's blind, and I was talking to her, looking at her interpreter all the time, and it's like, simple mistakes like this. I still do. It's like we all learning, we all like making mistakes, and like I think as you get out of your comfortable zone and start hanging out with people that is not on your demographic, that is the way to learn. Making mistakes with them, and like telling yourself, okay, next time we get it right, and move on, But you got to immerse yourself in other cultures and other, and other, like you got to hang out with the marginalized part of the society as well. You got to get out there. You know, if you don't want to be a racist, hang out with black folks. If you don't want to be a homophobe, hang out with queer folks. If you don't want to be ableist, hang out with disabled folks.
Oh my gosh, that's so good.
Follow them on Instagram. It's like I can name about 10 of them out there that they're doing really good work of educating us. And it's like there is no excuses these days. Education is on your pockets.
Yeah. If you have a list of people, let us know, or we can also do the work and go see who you're following. We can go over to your Instagram, see who you're
Yeah,
following,
yeah.
check it out. Yeah.
No, I can send it to you. There are plenty of disabled activists out there doing
That'd be
amazing work.
amazing because then we can link to that in
Yeah,
our show notes. And um, I also want to acknowledge and say thank you for saying, like, you also recognize ableism within yourself because I
yeah.
wouldn't have assumed that.
No, yeah. We call it internalized ableism. I have like every day, like like for example, I'm gonna tell another example. I broke my back on the T3. T is a short for thoracic, and three is the number of vertebrae. So the third vertebrae on my chest, I basically paralyzed from the chest down, the nipple area down. Uh, when I work at the rehabilitation center, sometimes I teach and I hang out. I have a lot of friends who has a cervical spinal cord injury. It means that they have broke their necks, so they have less body function. Some of them cannot raise their arms, so they have like they lack like triceps strength, for example. Some of them doesn't have a hand function, and so on. And I have caught myself feeling sorry for them so many times that I'm like, Rodrigo, what's going on? That's why I tell you, it's like, we need to check with our assumptions, because our superego, the little voice inside of our minds, like they have been conditioned this way. I'm 42 years old. It's like 33 years old, 33 years in my life. I was feeling and thinking that having a disability was the worst thing that can happen to someone, And after that I became disabled myself, I was, hang on a minute, that's not true. So like, but it's still like a lot of ableism, like engraved in my thoughts, in myself, that I need to be aware of it. I need to be conscious. I need to bring this darkness into light and say, no, 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 you're not going to think about that anymore. you know
Oh my gosh, that's so helpful. So we're all in this mess together, learning and
Well,
making mistakes.
of
What are
course.
some
It's like, yeah, it's like it's a mistake factory here, you know. It's like, and I go, it's like, and I go further to say that's like, if you got to make a mistake, make them fast, you
Right.
know, because like every mistake is a learning opportunity. You know, we are on the curve, like, you know, it's like make them. Don't be afraid of them. Don't be afraid of making a fool of yourself, of saying the wrong thing, but have the humility to apologize and to acknowledge that you made a mistake, and you're going to try to, you know, to improve, whatever improve means, like, you know, become a better version of yourself, basically, you know, be more welcome to everyone, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Connected yoga teachers, I'm popping in here for a moment for a couple of reasons. So, one, make sure to check out our show notes. That's over at theconnectedyogateacher.com/391 for all of the links in today's episode, and also a link to way more episodes about teaching accessible and inclusive yoga. We have a ton of resources on this. And you'll hear Rodrigo and I mention Jivana Heyman. Lots of those episodes are with him, and then also other accessible yoga teachers who are really having these conversations. I also wanted to tell you about OfferingTree for a moment in case you don't know about this online software that's specifically made for yoga teachers. So, whether you need to create a website or you're wondering how you can manage and organize all of your registrations or schedule your classes online and get your offerings where people can see them, this software has you covered. It's like having a business coach or a fellow entrepreneur friend in your back pocket specifically for yoga. That's the other thing that OfferingTree does is they really support yoga teachers and yoga studios. That's what they specialize in. They have tons of resources. So head over to offeringtree.com to check out the resources. And then if you're like, hey, I actually need a software like this and would like to be part of things using this software, use our promo code that's over at offeringtree.com/Shannon. Shannon is spelled SHANNON. Alrighty, let's get back into our conversation today about yoga for wheelchair users. Would you attend a regular yoga class now, or do you, or have you as a wheelchair user?
Yes, I have.
And then what kinds of things do you experience then? Because I feel like the moment a wheelchair user would roll into my class, I'd be like, oh shit, what about my class plan?
Yeah. Your class plan is out of the window.
Right.
Yeah. But that is where it gets fun, Shannon,
It does.
because like, you know, you're going to put yourself in a position that you got to be creative. You know, you might be anxious, but you're going to be creative, you know, and that's fun, right? It's like you're going to use your sense of exploration. You know, you're going to start to think outside the box. You know, you're going to become a better yoga teacher. I don't like to use the word better, but it's like a more, let's say, virtuoso yoga teacher. I'm more like, uh, you know, quick thinking, spontaneous, like witty, you know, you name it. Like it is a fun process to go through, you know. And I love when yoga teachers, they allow themselves to go there, you know, because not everyone is like this, Shannon. I have attended traditional classes that they didn't know how to offer me variations, and they generally, you know, ask me to skip the pose.
Okay. Do nothing.
Yeah,
Just sit
yeah,
there and,
yeah, yeah. I was excluded, you know.
oh,
Yeah, that's why I think that, you know, the work that we do, like me, Jivana, you know, like has a lot of meaning because, you know, like we are teaching yoga teachers not to go there anymore, you know, and to have a more compassionate, you know, approach, like a more inclusive approach. We're never gonna leave our student out in the blue, you know, with their breath. looking around. No, we're going to give you a variation. We're going to, it's like, you have a place at the table. Come and join us,
Right. It's
Yeah.
like when, I remember learning like, okay, and here's what you do with the pregnant student. You would just put them in child's pose now and put them in child's pose, put them in child. And I was like, wait, there has to be more to this. We can't keep, they're going to be so tired of it. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's up to us. I mean, definitely taking a
Yeah.
training would help to like find all of the variations and the ideas.
Of course, because like that is something that we don't learn on the 200 YTTs or 300 YTTs or wherever.
Yeah.
We get out of these YTTs with a very rigid mindset that an asana should feel that way, should aesthetic look that way. Like very few YTTs these days teach about inclusion, accessibility, and equity. Very
Yeah.
few.
It's very true. It's very true.
Mm.
I actually, other than YTTs that specialize in making yoga accessible, I don't know that 200 hours are putting this in their training. Even
No,
I know 200 hours aren't even touching on pregnancy, and I feel like that's one of the
yeah,
most common, um,
yeah,
things where people are coming to class and they're pregnant.
yeah. And also, like, we are training to serve only one type of body,
Right.
right? Like it's like skinny, like quote unquote, like white or healthy. It's like if someone has a impairment or a lack of balance, like an older adult, for example, like we don't know.
Mhm.
Like we have no idea, we have no clue. That's where we're going to wear the mistake boots, and go gentle and it's like and laugh and learn.
What's coming to mind is this. I got hired to teach a yoga dance class, and I showed up, and 98% of the people couldn't leave their chair. And I had not planned on that. I was just thinking yoga dance, like everyone will be in for the dancing. And I was like, shoot. And it was one of the best classes. Like we just all sat in chairs then and then
Yeah,
did played the music and I made it up and I left there feeling really good. People loved it.
this
Yeah.
is beautiful. This is beautiful.
Yeah. Because
Yeah,
otherwise, what was my other option? Be like, I'm not teaching this. I'm
yeah,
leaving. Yeah.
yeah.
No, we had a lot of fun. So, and you're right, like an older adult, some of my some of the students who have come to my classes with whatever is going on in their body, they're the ones that have taught me. I'll look over and see, oh, they're doing this different variation and I think, "Oh, that's brilliant."
Yeah,
That's really how to learn. So,
yeah.
tell us, like, what are some of the poses where you're like, "This is an easy variation that a wheelchair user can do." And can you kind of walk us through, like, I don't know, I don't even know the correct terminology of, like, what about when someone can move their arms versus they can't? Like, if they have a cervical spine
Mm,
injury versus thoracic.
yeah. Right. Let's say that one thing that I love doing, I just posted here about this today. It's opening my spine in the six directions. As I transfer in the morning to my wheelchair. Uh, After 3 hours sitting in my wheelchair, I start feeling like my muscles become really stiff and rigid. Especially my trunk muscles, my hamstrings. So what I do, I like to rock my body from side to side a little bit. And then from there, I ground myself through my sitting bones. I press through my feet and then I side bend on the inhale to one side as far as comfortable for me. And I side bend to the opposite side. I raise my arms. If someone with a quadriplegia, with a cervical injury, was doing the same thing, they would ground their hands on their right hip as they bend to the left side. Inhaling, exhale back to center. They ground the left hands on the left hip, and they ground to the right side, and they bend to the right side. That is a lateral flexion. I would then jump into a cat call, a version of cat call, a flexion and an extension of the spine, where I would place my both hands outside my knees as I'm sitting. I would curve my spine, bring my chin towards my chest, arching my back like a cat. I pay attention to my shoulder blades as they broaden. I have a deep exhale through the mouth here. And to get into call, I would pull my femur bone back to my hip sockets as I broaden my chest, and then I gaze to the sky. I extend my spine as my shoulder blades go towards each other over here. If you have a quadriplegia, if you have a cervical injury, you, instead of extending your arms outside of your knees, you might use your wheelchair frame as a support to get into call. And the movement would be subtle. Like you would work more with your heart center and with your shoulder blades. You're gonna raise your heart center as much as comfortable for you. On the inhale, get into call, and exhale, you're gonna broaden your shoulder blades. Pay attention to the center of your chest. Because that is where you can have like a muscle activation, let's say, like movement. But even though you're going to offer a cue in a way that this person would feel the whole body, even though they cannot move, you would say things like ground through your inhales, because this person would like Matthew Sanford, one of my teachers, he says like prana follow consciousness more than follows breath. So like when you kill the whole body, even if this person cannot move, prana is taking place in the whole body.
Okay.
Right.
That's really great to know, so that we can continue with the cues that we've used.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah. And because like if you ask me to press down to my wheelchair footrest, even though I cannot press, I'm doing it.
Right.
I'm grounded. Yeah. We can do something right now. Like if you sit down, like, and ground yourself through your sitting bones and raise your sternum a little bit. Now extend your spine sitting up straight and tall, and take a deep inhale. As you inhaling, you grow taller. Exhale, long and soft. You surround yourself to gravity. That grounding sensation, this seated version of Tadasana that we just experienced, is the same ground sensation that you would have if you practice Tadasana standing up or in bed, or like, so when the muscular activation, when the physical movement is limited, in adaptive yoga, we work with the sensations. You work translating the sensations, creating variations of the sensations, which anybody can feel. Like, any movement you do consciously is yoga, right? You don't need the muscle activation to do it.
This brings a whole other question that I want to bring up, or topic that I want to bring up, is that a common question that we see pop into the Connected Yoga Teacher Facebook group is like, oh my gosh, I have this injury, or I'm not feeling well, or whatever. I don't know if I can teach my class. And I'm always thinking, like, you don't have to be able to do the yoga to teach it.
No, exactly.
Yeah. And so what would you say, like, I know it does really help me because that's the way my brain works. Like, it does help me to move, it helps me to say, like, lean to the right, and I'm actually doing that. Or
Yeah. I love demon as well, like, demonstrating. Yeah. Talking about demonstrating, and just to close up what I was talking before, and then I twist my spine in both directions as well. So I open my spine in this direction. Twist it's a very yummy thing to do if you're in a wheelchair, and especially because it like has this massage elements into it. Like we don't get to move very often, so we tend to have constipations and so on. So like a twist is always welcome for any wheelchair user. So like, extension, flexion, twist both sides and lateral flexions. This is the way I open my spine. And I do that, Shannon, about 3-4 times a day, everywhere. Like, you know, I love doing this, and it is accessible for everyone, and decrease my pain, decrease my muscle spasticity. It's like it's a short and sweet practice, that is available to me at any time.
That's amazing. Thank you for
You're
sharing
welcome.
that. And like I was feeling like, okay, I want to move
Yeah,
well, as you were talking through it. So I hope our connected yoga teachers do the same thing. What
yeah.
what um what resources would you suggest if people want to make their yoga classes more accessible to wheelchair users?
Uh, a very good resource that I just like had the pleasure to read, and it's not only for wheelchair users. It's a more broadened way of making yoga accessible. Is the new Giovanna's Heyman book, like Teachings Guides to Accessible Yoga. Because he talks a lot about like this this way to make your class welcoming. The asana, it is important aspect of it to be able to offer the variations, but it's like the other aspect of seeing your student, and breaking that hierarchy of teacher, that relationship that we have with our students, that like getting out of that teacher seats. Like he talks about collaboration, he talks about agency, he talks about like boundaries. So it's like it is a great book to read. From
Okay.
that you have like you have a lot of things to integrate into your teaching, and which will make you like someone that will know how to welcome someone with disability in the class.
I think Jivana should sponsor this episode.
Yes,
Sponsored by Jivana's book. We'll definitely link to it. I think he's been on the podcast the most out of all of our guests. So
really.
yes.
I am like about to start to write a book about it. And
Oh,
yeah,
tell us more.
yeah, I am like because like I say beautiful words about the medical model, no? And it is something that is lacking. When I went through my rehabilitation process, I I didn't have access to this practice by anybody coming from the medical model. I had because I went to it because like looking for it because I was a yogi before. And they have the physiotherapy. They have like I'm not complaining about it, but like it took me like 4 years to get in terms with my neuropathic pain, for example. And they gave me from, I don't know, like opioids to antidepressants to muscle relaxants, everything. I felt like a zombie for like 2 years in a row just trying this medication out. you know Even morphine, right? I told my doctor, listen, like this pain is something that I'm gonna have forever until I die. Why you giving me oxytocin? Why you giving me morphine? And then they're like, because it is what we have available. It's like, but in 5 to 10 years, I might have like a liver transplant or something.
Right.
So, like, I'm writing a book that would be like a complementation to the process of like, someone goes through like a rehabilitation process. It's like it will complement the rehabilitation process, but in a more holistic way. You know, I'm going to teach them like adaptive yoga. The fundamentals, how to move the bodies. How to work with the prana. I'm gonna have like some Buddhism psychology, some gratefulness, mindfulness, a bit of tantra as well, because like it's quite funny. But if you go through a spinal cord injury, they they don't talk to you about your sexuality. They talk to you about Like if you want to reproduce, Rodrigo, if you want to have a kid, if you want to be a father, you can do an in vitro fertilization. That's it. I was say, hang on a minute. What about the other things? Right? Nothing. There's nothing
Nothing
about
at all.
no, nothing at all.
Oh my
And
gosh, the, like, part of me
yeah,
that's so
yeah,
fascinated by
yeah,
pelvic health is like, that's a
yeah,
huge
yeah,
misconception
yeah.
in the medical system.
And I
Okay.
work, and I work, and I work, and I work in a rehabilitation center, and we have meetings about things, right? I am like, I've been working as a role model for them for like 7 years in a row. And I see like spinal cord injury men, like married men, saying that's like, oh, my wife doesn't have sex with me anymore because she doesn't know how to please me, or my girlfriend left me, or I don't have sex anymore. I don't feel pleasure. So I would love to offer them like a new way of exploring the sexuality, walking away from that, penetration McDonald's sex we are conditioned to things like, in a more tantric way, like with massage, with like intimacy, like that doesn't need to have any sexual. Intercourse or anything, so I've been studying that as well, so much. That goes in the book as well. So like I would love someone to read the book to feel safe in the body they have, and to use the tools to bring themselves back all the time, through breath, through movement, through intimacy, like through music, through dance. Like, it's going to be like something that I would love to have read it 10 years ago. and
Yeah.
it and it took me 10 years to rehabilitate myself to the place I am now. So I'm gonna pass everything that I've been studying and implementing in my life. I have tried from Jesus Christ to marijuana. I have tried everything. You know, it's like what worked with me. I gonna put in the book. What didn't work, it's like, was a learning curve.
Yeah.
You know, and that is like something that I'm planning to do.
That's so exciting. We'll have to have you back when you are getting the book ready to launch for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And
I'm
I
super sorry. I have one question here that I'm super curious if yoga helped you with that. Was it nerve pain that you said?
Yeah.
Did it help then?
Yeah, it did help.
Wow.
Yeah. Today, Shannon, I manage my pain. I have like recurrent UTIs because I use catheters.
Yep.
I have like neuropathic pain. I have like muscle spasticity. They are like secondary, you know, uh, conditions from my spinal cord injury. And today I deal with a lot of the things only with I manage it with like mindfulness, adaptive yoga, and sunshine. I live in Sweden, but when the winter comes, I fly south. I live in Brazil between the winter time. The sun as well. It's a place a massive like change. In my quality of life. Like, and it's all natural. It's
Yeah.
all which is amazing. Like, I've got pain right now, but like I'm aware of it. Before, like I was aware of it, and I was too aware of it. But now I know it's there. I observe it. But it's like, let's say that I have pain in my glutes, in my sitting bones. Like, I have no pain in 80% of my body. Let's focus over there. I have learned how to work with my sense of awareness as well. And yoga taught me that. Yoga taught me to, Rodrigo, you can live in your body with its flaws, with its pain, and live it and love it and be cool with it. You don't need to distract yourself from it, like a lot of people do. Stay
Right.
here, man. It's the one you've got. Love this thing over here, this meat suit, and take it forward. Do the things you want to do. Be grateful to be here.
Oh my gosh. We could all take that on. I feel like that has come for me as someone who grew up in a woman's body,
Mm.
I feel like that's come with age because
Yeah.
we're taught a lot or I was anyway, you're supposed to look a certain way and use your body in this way. And
Yeah.
I was like, I want to use my body how I would like to, which is like
Exactly.
being out in the garden in my plaid shirt and my rubber boots. Thank you. Thank you. I will not be needing any makeup sold to me. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
know.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh, this is amazing. I hope if our connected yoga teachers have questions, and they might have specific questions, I hope they put them in the show notes so that we can just invite you back and
Yeah.
get
We'd
some more
love to.
answers, or they can go and study with you and learn from you and um, follow you on Instagram for sure. And yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. They'll be nice. And there are a lot of people like hijacking my DMs every day, and if you listen to this, folks, and if you ever experience like someone with a disability in your yoga class, or if you'd like to make your teachings, your offerings accessible to this population, if you've got any doubts, any questions, just DM me. I am very passionate about this, and I would sure to be available, to make myself available, and answer all your questions as well.
thank you so much for that. Where do our connected yoga? We'll put these in the show notes, but where should they go to find you?
Yeah, they can come to Allihopa Yoga. Allihopa. Allihopa is my favorite Swedish word. It means everyone.
Oh my gosh, I love that word. Allihopa?
Yeah, Allihopa. I am like Allihopa Yoga on Instagram, and my website is allihopayoga.com. You
Everyone. What a
can find
great word.
it. Is nice,
Fun.
isn't it? Everyone. Yeah, yeah, it's a cool word.
It
What's your
is.
favorite English word, Shannon?
What's that?
What's your favorite English words?
Favorite English word? I don't think I know what it would be. I might have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
What is your favorite English word? Do you have one?
I would say equality.
Equality. Gosh, that's a good word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like thinking about words, and what they means, and all the things that you can do with them.
Thank you so much for this.
Shannon, I am the one that should thank you. Thank you, Sai, for opening space for this and to hold this space as well. I appreciate you.
Wow, I appreciate the work that you're doing immensely. Yeah. Thank you.
Anytime. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you again, Rodrigo, for your amazing insights. Not only about how can we teach yoga to wheelchair users, but again, like how can we just embrace that we're all making mistakes and learning, and let's keep doing that together. Thank you, connected yoga teachers, for tuning into this episode. If you want to learn more from Rodrigo, I highly recommend following him on YouTube. Check out his classes on there. They're amazing. Follow him on Instagram. We'll make sure to put these links in the show notes, and see who he's following for accessible yoga as well. Like he already invited us all to do, let's sort of diversify who we're following. So let's not just follow people who like live in our town, who look like us, who have lives like us. Let's follow worldwide yoga teachers. Let's find some yoga teachers who are teaching yoga from a wheelchair. Let's find yoga teachers who are amputees. We have a great episode on that as well. I'll try and make sure that we link to that one in the show notes as well. I went and found the episode. It's with Melissa, and Melissa is talking about limb difference and yoga, and that was episode 289. So I'll make sure that we share that link as well, along with so many others. If you have a topic that you have questions about in terms of disability or variations in abilities for humans, and you wish that we would cover it on the podcast, or you are an expert in dealing with a disability in your life or having a disability in your life or having different abilities, and you teach yoga or you practice yoga, we would love to hear from you. So make sure to reach out. You can do that through our Facebook group. If you go to theconnectedyogateacher.com, go to our website, you can join the Facebook group there if you're a yoga teacher. There's also ways to message us right from our website. If you're thinking that you want to learn right away how to teach yoga to people with different abilities, please look at training with Rodrigo or Jivana Heyman. And if you have questions, if you're like, I just have this quick question, like, how do I teach yoga to this person with different abilities? Post that type of question in our Facebook group, because you'll get an answer right away from the other teachers in that group. They're so supportive and helpful. Or post it in the show notes. If you're thinking, okay, I wish Shannon would do a podcast on this. So often, podcast listener questions or our Facebook group questions are the fuel for this podcast. So I would love to hear from you if you have questions or things that you want us to cover, or if you think, hey, I want to help you cover this topic. It hasn't been covered yet. Okay, like I said, on a personal note, I'm going to share what's been happening over here behind the scenes. So today, as this episode goes out to your ears, it's exactly 8 years of the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. This is huge. 8 years ago, our very first episode went out, and I would never guess that we would still be here hanging out together in 2025. Oh my goodness. Let's take a breath for a moment and think of all the things we've been through since then. I don't know about you. I don't know if it's just me, but the world feels like a very different place right now than it did 8 years ago. And you can tell even by our podcast episodes that the world is a very different place for yoga teachers as well. So a little explainer here. Normally, I would be releasing an episode specifically talking about what it's been like to podcast now for 8 years, but I had to keep things very simple this week because I had a bit of a health scare. So I was up in the morning. It was like a school day, a work day for everyone. But also it was a snow day. So, the buses were canceled. I was just waiting for my office to let me know that we were closing. I knew that we would be. It was a really big snow day. And just so you know, we have an exchange student staying with us, and that is snow day number 22 for her and the kids in our area. That's a record. The most snow days I've ever seen for my kids was 13 in one winter. Anyway, it was just a normal morning. Nothing was really different. I mean, we've had a lot of snow days. And all of a sudden I had this, when I got up, I had this sharp shooting pain behind my left shoulder blade. And I thought, oh, wow, that's some pretty strong muscle pain. So I went to stand near the wall and see if I could just kind of work it out on the corner of the wall, which sometimes I'll do. And I immediately felt nauseous. And then I must have fainted. I don't remember. I just remember feeling nauseous. And then I came to on the floor with a really sore head. I really fell. And my daughter Sage was standing over me, asking me what happened. I'm really lucky that she was home and that she heard me fall. I was very out of it. She got me to the hospital on her own in a snowstorm. Some people were like, you should have called the ambulance. Anyway, we got there. We did it. And the doctor and the other medical staff there were amazing. I'm really grateful that I live in Canada where, as of today, healthcare is free for everyone because, wow, they ran so many tests. One of the heart enzyme tests that they ran showed an elevated amount. So it definitely was scary, thinking something could be going on with my heart. So they did more scans and ultrasounds and blood tests, and I was hooked up to monitors all day. And when I started, having good results from some of those tests, then they said, okay, you can go home as long as you come back here if you feel one weird thing happening again. And then I have follow-up tests to do in the next couple of months. But I came home with a lot to think on about my heart health. On one side of my family, we have early heart issues, and some of those have been fatal. So it's, always in the back of my mind and also my family's. But I also came home with a concussion from my fall, which I used to work in a physio office, specifically a lot of the time with brain injuries and concussions. And so it is a very different feeling to be on the other side of things, trying to look at concussion recovery, like thinking, can I even look at my screen and record this podcast? I found, thanks to my good friend Ray, a really amazing podcast about what to do if you have a concussion. I'm going to link to that in the show notes in case you're listening to this and you are like, you want to learn more about concussions. Maybe we should cover it in an entire podcast episode. But there's a lot of new research about concussions. And I'm glad to learn that because it lets me know that I can do this podcast, look at this screen, unless my symptoms increase. So I'm clipping away here, doing a little bit of work, but also taking it easy as much as possible. Not going to lie, still a little bit freaked out about there being a possible heart issue with me, but also feeling so grateful for the people who really just, messaged me, jumped up to help out our family, call or checking in. We have been in a snowstorm as well for like 5 days. It's really holding over us and roads have been closed around us. So guess what then happened? When I was like, okay, I can look at my screen for a little bit and put the podcast together, my computer cord died. Thank goodness for my superhero neighbor, Sandy, who was like, no problem. I'm going to drive to town and go get you a cord. I just asked to borrow one from her household. And she was like, I'm going to do better because we didn't have the compatible cord. She went and got one. Oh my gosh, I'm feeling just like extremely supported. That's for sure. Also sad because Ray and I had big plans to go to Montreal this weekend and go listen to Nemesis in concert. If you don't know who Nemesis is, I'm going to link to Nemesis. Go follow her. She's a Palestinian Canadian artist. An amazing, amazing story. I'll try and link to the interview actually with her where she's talking about what it was like to record this album in the West Bank this year. And it's a bit of a miracle that that's even there. So I can't go to the concert. Super sad about that. Very grateful that my good friend Ray is understanding because we were going to meet up there. But anyway, all of these things can be worked out. And I do also want to say one other thing. Yoga helped me so much getting all these scans done, like tuning into my body, asking myself, what do I need? How am I feeling? Being able to see if I can calm my nervous system amongst all of this. Yeah. So keep sharing yoga with people. It really does help, especially when you're like in the midst of a weird scan at the hospital. Okay. Oh yeah. I also wanted to update you on my new job at Mawikwadong Indigenous Cultural Center. So if you haven't heard, I'm working there just for a short-term contract. And I want to say that it has been so helpful for me to be in community and to be helping. So as many of you know, I feel like I've really been wanting to do more. I feel like there's more needed in the world: social justice, equality, a free Palestine, Sudan, and Congo. And especially with the current news coming out of the US, oh my gosh, I feel for you if you live in the US. But also it's impacting the entire planet. It's impacting the rights of women, queer folks, trans folks. This is all really being impacted. And really that impacts all of us. And along the way, I definitely have days where I feel powerless. But getting out in my community and doing something has helped me tremendously. So if you're like, wow, I feel the same way, Shannon, I feel like I don't know how to show up, I feel really angry at how things are going, I would say look for the helpers in your community. I'm sure you're one of them. If you're sharing yoga, it's making a difference. If you have a little extra time, maybe you can show up where you see people in need. We grow, learn, and thrive in community. You might decide, hey, I'm going to join a knitting group, or I'm going to take a meal over to my busy neighbor, or I'm going to call a friend who's going through tough time, or I'm going to sort through my closet and donate some clothes to my local women's shelter. Every small thing adds up. It doesn't have to be that you're, spending more time in community with people either. You could plant a tree, or you could look at how to plant one more native plant for the pollinators and replace a non-native flower in your garden, or mix those pollinator plants in, those native plants. There are so many things that we could be doing to make a difference, and small ripples make a huge difference in the world. If you are enjoying the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast, I'd love to hear from you. You can comment on the show notes page. Again, the one for this episode is over at theconnectedyogateacher.com/391. We read all of those comments. You can also leave a review on your podcast app. That really helps more yoga teachers find us. That really supports the podcast. I just want to say a huge thank you if you're doing that. On our website, you can see how you can email us. You can see how you can join our Facebook group. What's happening next on the podcast? I'm not even sure. I might do an episode where I answer some questions. We'll see if listeners have questions. But we might just keep going. I've got some great episodes lined up. Thank goodness I have a bank of episodes ready to go. And I just want to say a huge thank you to you for being here for this long personal update at the end. Thank you to our incredible team who brings this podcast to life each week. And thank you so much for sharing yoga out in the world, for doing yoga, practicing yoga, learning more about it, and sharing how that's helping you and allowing it to support others. Okay, you know the question I'm going to ask. If you've been listening for 8 years or even a few episodes, I want to know, what will you be doing this week to stay connected to yourself, your yoga practice, and to your community so that you can share the yoga that lights you up?